Good evening, everybody. I am Jason, your cruise host, and thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Access Pass. I am joined on stage by one of the most legendary groups of all time, decorated beyond belief, talented beyond what is fair for any human, and we are so blessed to have him with us here, not only on the Malt Shop Cruise, but on stage with me, The Temptations.
Thank you. Absolutely, thank you all.
So I'm going to start real simple right here at the end with this handsome young man right here. How many of you know who's sitting next to me? Do you guys know who this legend is right here? The one, the only, Dr. Otis Williams is here with us in the building.
Thank you. Hello, how you doing?
Founding member of the Temps, and this is going to sound horrifically rude, and I don't mean it that way, but the only surviving member of the original Temptations.
It is what it is.
And good on you. You made it. Good for you. Thank you so much for keeping the group together, for pushing this music through generation after generation, and still performing and sounding the way you guys do. What's it like for you now versus what it was for you guys then as a group?
Well, I would have to start off by saying I give it to God first. Yes. I do. Because I've gone through 27 different guys, and Tony is the 27th.
Jawan is the 27th.
Jawan's the 27th,
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's my number. That's my number.
Yeah. But, you know, you learn a lot when you have gone through so many different personalities, and it has helped me learn a lot about me, not only about whomever I have to deal with. So it's a blessing in disguise at times. So I'm thankful that we've been able to be here for 61 years.
Yeah.
Because of you all. Because of you. Thank you.
61 years. That is a feat. It is one thing to have your music, you hear it on the radio every now and then after but to still be truly relevant. And I want that to be respectfully taken, to still be as relevant as you are. You've got a Broadway show out there. You've got your book, obviously, was the basis for that Broadway show. And you guys have a relatively new album that came out just a year or two ago.
It came out a couple of years ago. It's called Temptation 60. So if you don't have it, you better get it, because you know, the business has changed, so that I don't know if the Temps will record anymore, because they don't play music like what we have made, and a lot of the acts from our era. They don't play them like that, you know, and it's hard. Now, one day, our manager called up to the company we were recording for, and it had been out for about 3 to 4 weeks. So Shelley asked, so how did sales? And the girl said, oh, well, you got so many hits on this. Oh, you got so many hits on that. So Shelley said, okay, good. What is that in sales? She couldn't define it, because it's not like that anymore.
It's streaming now, and it's all that business. Yeah, it's not quite the same as it used to be.
Right.
I'm going to skip over you now, Dr. Williams, and I'm going to go to Mr. Ron Tyson. You've been over 40 years. Is that correct, sir?
And I'm only 42.
Yeah.
They laugh at that because they know that's funny.
Yeah. Over 40 years with the group. Tell us about how you came to be part of this fabulous group.
Well, let's see. You know, I met Otis before getting into Temptations, and we produced an album on the group. And, you know, they gave me a little message. Well, hey, man, if anything ever comes up, we'll get in touch with you, you know. And so the situation changed, and something came up. So I called Otis, left a message for him that I knew a guy who could possibly fill that position. So
I know a guy.
He said, well, who was the guy? I paused for a minute. I said, well, here we go. I said, well, it's me, O. And he said, oh, okay. He said, well, okay, well, look, it's interesting. He said, let me get back to you in a couple of days. I knew he had to go run a credit check on me to find out, you know, to see if this is legit, you know. So he called me back in a couple of days, and he said, well, meet us in Florida. Come on down, and we're going to, you know, see what you got. And so I went down to Florida, met with him, and, you know, I said, oh, God, here go the test. I'm going to have to stand in front of everybody and do whatever. But it went well, and here I am 40 years later. So.
A little birdie told me that your very first performance was Motown 25, and you have a story about possibly that performance.
Well, yeah, kind of a story. it was my first gig. I thought we were going to go to Portland and Seattle, and they were going to break me in. And Otis come one day, he said, well, Chai, it looked like we're going to have to get on this boat real quick, bro. They want us to do this TV show. I'm like, oh, my God. So we're standing backstage. Martha Reeves was standing next to me. So she said, well, Ron, everybody's going to be watching you tonight. So I'm like, watching me? Why? You know, she said, well, you're the new kid on the block, so they want to see, well, who's this guy coming behind Eddie Kendricks? Now, I'm already shaking. Now she tells me that. So, you know, we had these steps. You had to walk up these steps. And so when Smokey said, ladies and gentlemen, here they are, the Tempting Temptations. Well, as we're going up the steps, I'm saying to myself, Lord, please be with me going up these steps. I don't want to fall. I hope my voice is there. I mean, it was a whole lot of things I was saying to myself to try to take the fright out of it, you know, and lo and behold, got up there and, you know, time come to get to the microphone. They gave me that opportunity was there, and here we are, like I said, 40 years later. So the big fella kept his eye on me. He didn't send me home too quick. So.
You know, I think that's a great note, too, because people, you know, those of us regular folks that aren't on stage performing like you folks are, we tend to look at the superstars and go, oh, man, they don't feel nerves. Oh, man, they're cool as the other side of the pillow. But that's a great message to the fact that, no, nerves are a real thing, even for the legends.
You know what? I'm a Frank Sinatra admirer.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of reading. And I read where Frank, somebody asked him the same thing, do he get nervous? And Sinatra said, you should always want to get nervous because you want to do better. You don't take it for granted. Even when we go on 61 years later, I get the jitters and the flitters and all that stuff, but that's a good thing to have. So you never take it that kind of confident.
Great message. Yeah, absolutely. Next to Ron, we have, next to Ron, we have Terry. Terry down there. Now, Terry, I understand, first and foremost, thank you for your service. You are an Air Force veteran, sir.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
And you've been with the group over 25, what are you, 26-ish years? Where are you? You're in that.
27 next month.
27 next month. Not that you're counting. Not that you're
Absolutely.
counting every month at
Right,
this point. And I understand you might have a story about potentially an audition that you performed for
Slightly. I was in, actually, when this happened, I was still enlisted. I met this gentleman on a street corner in Hollywood Boulevard, the corner of Hollywood and Cherokee. I was out sightseeing. He was in a shoe store. I love shoes. He was in a shoe store. So I was with friends. We waited till he came outside. He said, hey, do you have a moment? And I sang for him right there on the street. And I've been a wart on his butt ever since. He can't get rid of me now.
Terry, as long as you've been with me, I've never heard you put it like so colorful. But see, he's telling it mild. It was a beautiful Saturday. And I'm sitting at home. I said, man, it's too pretty to be in the house. Let me get out and ride. So I came down the hill and went to the shoe store that he was talking about. So when I came out, Terry was with a young lady and her husband, I believe, at the time. So she said, Mr. Williams? I said, yes. You have a minute? I said, yes. She turned to Terry, cold, robotic. Sing, brother, cold. Go for it right here.
Hey, I like to eat.
Yeah. And he see, like I've always said, Donny Hathaway was one of the best singers. Anytime you step out to do a Donny Hathaway song, you better sing it or leave it alone. He sung it, and I'm listening at my good ear. I said, this brother can sing. I am not going to let him get away. Hey, man, give me your number. Now, he didn't think I was going to call. A few days later, I called, and we were going to put him with a group called For Lovers Only. And Motown started to release the record that I'm talking about, but they didn't. However, when they broke up, I snatched him over here to the Temptations. And he's been with me, solid as a rock. I can always depend on that.
Thank you.
And on the other side of Terry, we have Tony Grant. Now, Tony, you
Yes,
are the second to newest at what? You're about 3 years-ish now. 2 years.
Close to 2.
2
Right
years.
at
Sorry.
2.
Yeah, don't count your third yet. You're not there. Oh, got his eyes on you. And you, sir, though, you have a beautiful resume. You've performed with a lot of folks, for a lot of folks.
I have.
You're an actor, stage and screen, and the whole 9 yards. Before I ask Otis if you're any good, what's it like for you being part of this?
I'm gonna say, I know we've never been there before, but we all attained to get there. It's like heaven. I've been so blessed and honored to be a part of this group. These guys are the top. They're at the top, and I'm grateful tonight to be here. First of all, but I'm grateful for my wife who's sitting here in the second row. If it were not for her, if it were not for her pushing me, I probably wouldn't be a Temptation. I got to tell you a quick story. I was singing lead for the group Chicago. And we were on our way, my wife and I were on our way to the airport, and I was to go and sing with them. And this young lady that myself and Mr. Otis never met, still haven't met her, she reached out to my wife, and my wife was like, babe, somebody's texting me and saying they need to get in touch with you. I was like, I don't know them people, don't respond to that.
I don't know that area code. New phone, who this?
Right, new phone, I don't know that, don't respond. She said, baby, I got a feeling I need to respond to it. I was like, okay. So when I landed, she was like, babe, you ain't gonna believe this. I was like, what? She said, the Otis from the Temptations reached out to you. I said, you might have talked to Otis, but you ain't talked to no Otis from the Temptations. I thought it was a joke. Yeah. And I was like, baby, stop playing. She said, no, just call him. So I called him, and even when he was talking to me, I still didn't.
Sure.
But at the end of the call is when my antennas went up. He said, well, young man, all right, we'll see you later, gone. And I said, who says see you later, gone? That's got to be an old slang I've never heard before. So they flew me to Florida, and I saw them, and I was in a state of shock. Because I was like, do y'all know who y'all are? Y'all are the Temptations.
Looking around, trying to figure out if you belong.
Yes, I was in total shock, and I just, I got away from them. They don't know it, but I got away from them, and I cried a little bit. I did. I get emotional thinking about it because I'm so blessed and honored to be a part of this amazing group.
Great story. Now, yeah, tell us a little bit of it.
Well, I was about to say, now you might understand why there is a Temptation Broadway hit and the miniseries. An illustrious career sitting up here with these guys. Wonderful.
How did you hear about that young man, and what made you decide to call him? And
Tony?
yeah, I
like
said young. Sorry, Tony. Yeah, I said young, and he said who? Tony? That was you took the old shot first. In fairness, you took the old shot first. He just returned it.
I'm not that young.
How'd you find this young man? Who?
Well, like Tony mentioned, the young lady, him and I
Yeah.
have yet to see. And she somehow or another got in touch with me. She said, Otis, I know a young man that can sing. I said, so at that time I was going through the dilemma of trying to find somebody that, not see, like I tell people, it's more than just a talent. I look for the hidden heart. You can have all the talent in the world. If you're a-hole of a person, you're going to negate that talent. Talent is first and foremost one of the very important things. But what was I saying before? I got lost the way.
How you find him, and what made you decide to take a shot?
I'm lost in your own words.
Yeah, sure did. We talked on the phone, and we hooked up, and I think he came down, was it Texas?
No, Florida. Sarasota, Florida.
That's right. See, so many changes. But when the brother started singing, I did my right ear like I did in Ontario. I said, this brother can sing. He's a cold piece of work, you know, and we stayed in touch. And then he came down to Texas. Was it Texas?
After Sarasota?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Texas. It was.
And we did some harmonizing. He quicked up, great ear, could pick up real quick, and had the height, nice looking, you know. And so he's been in the group for 2 years, and he's a cold piece of work. Like I said, now Tony, he used to be with a group that was up and coming called As Yet, and I watched them. But I said, Tony, with the Temps, you got to work the stage. You just can't stand there and plant yourself, and that's it. I look around on stage, now Tony's walking from there all the way to So he's a great showman. He's a great showman.
And all the way at the end, the baby of the group, we had to put him all the way at the end, you understand? Juwan Jackson, very glad to have you with us, sir. You've only been with them for?
A year and a half.
A year and a half.
Yes.
So you are, with that voice, we understand already. Good Lord. Easy now, easy now. And if I'm not mistaken, you were starring in the Broadway show. Is that correct?
Yes, so I originated Melvin Franklin and Ain't Too Proud on Broadway. Yes, thank you. But before that, I played him, Melvin Franklin, in Motown the Musical on Broadway as well. So I've been playing Melvin all my professional career. And I've been an unofficial Temptation since 2013, 2012.
And obviously you saw him in the productions, you saw him, on Broadway, or how did you connect?
Well, I saw him on Broadway, and I would tell him when I first saw him, because we had a guy before, but he wasn't quite with the bass voice
Sure.
like Whitney. But when I saw Juwan, and he would come out, because they would call each cast members, I said, man, we see your teeth before we see you, because he has such a wonderful smile. His personality jumped right out,
Teeth before we see you.
And before we go on stage right today, him and Tony, they go and brush their teeth before we come out.
These kids today, I tell you.
But he's a
Gotta
wonderful
stay clean,
talent.
yeah.
A wonderful talent.
And Juwan, I gotta ask, man, after playing the role, obviously, elsewhere, and I'm gonna use a horrible phrase, and please don't take it this way, after acting and pretending to be a member, and again, don't take that the wrong way, now you are. What's that transition like mentally to actually step into the group from playing a member of the group?
It's nothing like it because I get to be myself. Playing Melvin, who is great, but he had to, have different mannerisms. And Melvin and myself, when I would do my research, I realized that we aren't as different as I thought we were. We were just one and the same, essentially, because every story I hear, it was always alike. My cousin used to date Melvin, so I got a little inside stories, inside scoop. But to now be in the group, I get to just show my artistic creativity to the world without having to put anybody else's anything on. So it feels great.
Perfect. Good for you, man. Good for you.
And can I add to that?
Of course
if
you
you
can,
don't
sir.
mind.
Of course.
I'd like to add to that. And that's what's wonderful about this group. And I'm going to speak for myself and Juwan. We are the new members of the group, but what we've been able to do is tap into the spirit of the Temptations, of the first Temptations. So instead of us trying to grab and plant ourselves as these entities in the group, we just slid right on in, and the spirit of the group just took over, and now we're a part of the Temptations.
And to take the pressure off, too.
Now I've leaned on Otis to answer a bunch of questions. So Ron, I'm gonna push at you a little bit here. You're after 40 years here. I've asked Otis about all of you. I'm gonna ask you, sir, having been with him the longest. Tell us a little bit about this man right here.
Okay, how much time we got?
As much as you need, sir. As much as you need.
Well, I'll tell you, when I got in the group and coming into the group at the same, I'm a person that's like a sponge. I like to watch and learn all I can from a beginning artist to one of the top artists, because you can always learn something from somebody. And I learned that when I got in the group, watching Otis, how he handled everything in the group and everybody, how he selected the music, and all these various things that we had to go through to be in the group. I was kind of adopting that myself, because I had a group before I got into Temptations of my own. It was on a lower level, but I was still the head of the group. And so to see Otis doing his thing, now I'm putting in my mind, okay, well, I did a little bit of that, but it wasn't on the level that Otis did it. So it was just coming in the group and having a person like Otis to learn from, to me, is important to you, because it takes your experience a little farther out once you can capture some of what he's trying to teach you, And for me, fortunately, I learned a lot, and I think that being in the group for 40 years, he's cataloged, because he catalogs everything. So he knows when you're making mistakes, and he still cracks the whip.
You see it on stage when it happened, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, you tighten up your own belt once you get in and see that he wants everything to be perfect, and then eventually you'll want everything to be perfect, So I love him to death like a big brother, and, I always tell him that, and I'm glad to be here.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Ron.
He's about to cry.
And if I could add,
Oh, yes.
simply put, if you want to get on the wrong side of this man, don't be on time. He's a stickler for time. Time controls everything in his book.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You're judged by the time you keep. You learn
Or
that once
don't
you
keep.
come in, or don't keep.
Yeah.
You
And
learn that when you get in the group.
It's amazing how brilliant his mind is. I remember, this is one of the things I remember. It was funny to me, but I remember it. We were opening up, we get ready. And that's the beginning. By the end of the show, he said, Tony, he came in the dressing room and said, Tony, you got to get your hand right. You got to get your hand in the first song. I was like, how did he remember that in the first song? We just went through 60 minutes of a show. And then he's like, Tony, you got to do your hand like this. I was like, what?
Clearly, you had bad fingers.
Yeah. Well, you see, we were taught by old school. By that I mean, Paul Williams is noted for teaching us first. Yes, yeah. But then came the late, great Charlie Atkins. Now, Charlie Atkins was a taskmaster, and he would cuss you out. He'd call you every name except the child of God if you didn't do his steps right. Or love him, you know, boy, move your ass. You can't go to Cleveland if you're in Cleveland. It's that kind of thing,
Throw things at you.
Oh, yeah. But when we were executed on stage, masterful. No one like Charlie Atkins. And we learned a lot being with Charlie. And my time thing came from, if you want to make Berry Gordy mad, be late. You do not care how talented you are, be late. And if you're late, ixnay, you gone. Ain't got time for it. So I learned that. But when we came to Motown, Mickey Stevens was the A&R man. And he listened to the Temps. He said, oh, Mr. Gordy gonna love you guys, your harmony, this and that. He said, but don't be late. If you're late, Barry cut you loose like a bad habit. So that stuck with me, which I was like that. My grandmother's taught me that, but it cemented it more with Berry Gordy.
And Terry, I'll throw this one at you, sir. What I've heard a lot of on stage is that even though you are part of a group that has such a legacy, and obviously the artists that were in each role before you guys had unique styles and abilities and voices, what I'm hearing is that Dr. Williams encourages you all to have your own flavor, your own flair, your own style.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about the fact that you guys get to be yourselves and not a facsimile of someone that was before you.
Which is true. And you have to think about when this music was done. I joke about it, but I was probably conceived to one of their records. I'm not that old.
You know there's a lot of babies at Temptations
Oh, yeah.
records. There's
Oh,
a lot of
yeah,
babies
yeah,
at Temptations
yeah.
records. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, we hear that all the time.
But he allows you the freedom to be yourself, but within the confines of what the Temptations are. And we never get outside of what the Temptations are known for. And that's, if you guys haven't noticed, I'm not 6 foot. You won't hear me say that again today, but that's what, it was tall, talented, young men. And I thought about that coming into this group. And to me, I said, well, I just don't fit the bill. I'm not tall enough. But this man took a chance on me.
You see,
took a chance on me.
the height was something that when the Temps got together, it was very coincidental that all of us was the same height. But when I ran across Terry and I heard him sing a song that I wish the world could have heard, he sings like he's 6 feet. To see this young man on stage, oh, he's a cold piece of work. Yes, he is.
Good news for us. We get to see him on stage. Yeah, if you'd like me to softball any more questions to him about your talent, let me know. I'll make sure I get it in. John from Grand Rapids wants to know, who came up with the name, The Temptations?
Well, the name came about in such an unusual manner. When we left Jeremy Matthews, which was the small label that we were with, we were Otis Williams in the distance. So when we left Jeremy, she said, well, if y'all going to leave me, I'm going to keep the name. I was about 18, 19 years old, and I guess I had enough cockiness to say, well, keep the name. You won't get no royalties. So we had to, deal with that. Barry had already seen my group at our community center and asked me to come over. So when I called Mr. Gordon, I said, Barry, we are no longer with the label. Oh, great, come on over. See Mickey Stevens. Mickey Stevens, A&R man. So we were nameless for a bit, you know. But one day we were standing out in front of Motown's legal department, and they had a guy by the name of Bill Mitchell, who was in charge of that. So we were kicking out names: Paul, Eddie, Melvin, and Al. David hadn't joined the group. So I think he said, Temptation. I said, I like that. We'll take that one. And so I asked Paul, I asked the guys, but Paul said something. He said, Otis, a name is whatever we make it. And so Bill called up to legal, and he hollered. He said, put on the contract, the Temptations. And we have been the Temptations from 1961 all the way up to this present time.
Oh, that's fantastic. Cherry comes to us from Plainwell, Michigan. How many songs were recorded at Hitsville, USA, a.k.a. Motown Museum?
Well, our whole catalog, other than, see, Tyson did an album on us when we were with Atlantic, and then we did one by the Harlem Dozier Brothers. Other than that, primarily everything that we've done is with Motown and various and soul Motown, so Universal on the catalog of Motowns now. But
Yeah. Do you remember? Yeah, I mean, your whole.
oh well, you know, we were just in Detroit, and I stood in the studio, countless.
Yeah.
Countless. Some of them have never been released. Oh yeah, there's still some in the can.
Do you guys have a big vault of songs? I mean, is there a big Temptations vault of songs that this world has not experienced?
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, because from 61, here it is. Well, Barry sold it a few years ago. I wouldn't doubt it. It's quite a few.
I
Yeah.
can only imagine. Joe comes to us from Fairview. In 1965, the song of the year was Downtown. In your opinion, how in the heck did it beat out My Girl?
Well, I think that Downtown came out a few months or so before My Girl, you know, and when we recorded My Girl, we did it in the summer of 64. And Motown released it December of 64. February of 65, we were at the Apollo Theater, and Mr. Gordy sent me a telegram, which I still have. The Supremes sent me a telegram. The Beatles sent me a telegram. And Jules, who used to run the Copacabana, they all sent me a telegram congratulating us that we were number one. And I still have those telegrams in my home today, you know, because My Girl is, I tell people, we used to do My Girl. We tried it. Went to number one, sold over 1 million copies. So Paul was the lineup guy. He said, well, fellas, we can take My Girl out of the show. We went out on stage. We did a show. See, I hear y'all moaning already.
That was a Don't You Dare this week. Think of that. Yeah, that was a.
They called us every name except the child of God when we did not do that. And we will never, ever take My Girl out of the lineup again.
Mary Jo comes to us from Rochester. Dear Otis, in the early days when the Temptations wore all the matching outfits, did you have a least favorite?
You know, Eddie Kendricks was such a wonderful guy of picking out the uniforms that whatever Eddie Kendricks would pick out, I enjoy it. I like it. Purple is my favorite color. So, and I must say, Tyson is doing a great job, you know, because I passed it over to, excuse me, Tyson. But yeah, Eddie was such a, he could dress. Brother could, he cold piece of work, dress. And Tyson is a good dresser. And so I watch guys, they come into the lineup. So I watched Tyson. I said, okay, he dressed very good. Let me check him out. Hey, man, you take care of the uniforms, because I was doing it. But, you know, I was covering so many other fronts, I wanted to pass it on. So he's been doing a great job quite some time now.
There you go. Cindy comes from Kalamazoo. Oh, this is actually perfect. How much were you involved in the musical about the Temptations, and how accurate is the portrayal?
We only took a small percentage to change the rundown of it. But the young lady, what's her name?
Dominique Morso.
She's a Detroiter. Her and the director, what's the?
Des McAnuff.
There you go. See, that's fresh mind.
Earning his paycheck already. Look at him.
Yeah.
Nicely done, Juwan.
They came out to my house and they wanted to question me get some information about the Temps. But when it really got thick, we had a meeting up there in Hollywood on Wilshire. And Des said, Otis, now we got to get deep. And I said, okay. Now we got to hear the other side. You know, everybody knows the hips, the Temps, the dancing, these suits and all that. but we got to get that other thing that you don't want to talk about. So I sat there, Dominique, I'm sitting here, she grabbed my right wrist, and I dropped my head. And I said, oh. She started rubbing my, she said, go ahead on, brother, tell it. And I started telling some things that happened. I got teary-eyed because I never would imagine that it was so touching this long, all the way to the present time now. So we wanted to make the play where it wasn't all just, da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, wanted them to say, wow, those guys have really lived life. So we had to go deep within what we, and there's still more that could be, if we were to do a part two, oh, there's still more I could tell. But when I was seeing on stage today, especially when I started losing guys, that was touching. And so it's deep. It was very deep, and I was amazed that this group has gone through so many wonderful but turbulent times that we'll still be able to sit up here and talk about it, because show business is so fickle.
Oh.
Well, you know, when the movie actually came out on TV, Otis wouldn't go see it because and I asked him once, you know, how come you won't go see it? He said, Ty, there's so many touching parts in there for me to look at that, you know, I'd be a ball of tears all the time, you know. Yeah. So
I saw it last year in Atlanta. We just checked in the hotel, and I guess it was God's wisdom that wanted me to see it. And I got in, and we've been traveling. I sat down. Oh, no. So it was destined for me to see it. And I sat there, and I'm watching it, and I said, oh, yeah, this is pretty good, you know. So we were in D.C. a couple of years ago when they give out those annual shows every December. So Smokey heard that I hadn't seen it. He said, Oak, he calls me Oak. I hear tell you haven't watched your miniseries. I said, no, Smokey. Why, Oak? Because I don't want to look at that. No. Oh, Oak, man, you got to watch it. I said, well, let me ask you something. Have you watched it? Yeah, Oak. I said, well, did it make you cry? Yeah, Oak. I give me a Kleenex, and I have it right down there. And ever seen that make me cry? I dab my eyes. So, yeah, it's touching that way. So, yeah, still is today.
I'm going to fire this one down to either Tony or Juwan. Either one of you wants to take this. This is from Mr. Roth from Brooklyn, New York. In the great history of the Temptations, both glorious and also tragic, what is the difference of just going out and singing Temptation songs and truly being a part of the history of the iconic group?
I want to hear that.
Yeah.
I'll go first, and then I'll let Tony tag on.
Please.
So I get this thing where I'll be mid-show, mid-song, and just bust out crying because the music is so touching, and it dawns on me that I'm actually a Temptation. You know, because that is so much history. I'm from Detroit, so I grew up with the Temptation. I grew up with the music. Terry is actually the Temptation I grew up on. He sings all my favorite songs, and so just to be singing next to him, and it hits me. I'm like, oh my God, like this is my life right now, and I also have a responsibility to carry on this legacy that I'm of the group that I'm in. You know, and I've been chosen for, and so. It is, you know, sometimes there's a lot of pressure, and then sometimes I'll look at them and like, oh man, I'm in the group, and do y'all know who y'all are? He's like, you a Temptation too, now shush, like, move on, like, you know. But it's
Stop
just,
crying and do the steps.
Yes, basically. But it's all joy, it's all happiness, and the responsibility that I've been charged to carry. So,
Tony, yeah.
For me, it's wow. Okay, so I wasn't allowed to listen to the music growing up as a kid. I was a church boy. Everything was church, inspirational church. I went 7 days a week at church. I snuck, and I heard the song My Girl. So it ended up being the only song that I knew when I came in the group. But what I found out, being a part of this group, that I was chosen to do this, I was called to do this, because growing up in the church, you know, the Bible talks about love, spreading love. Well, the Temptations wrote songs and sung songs that did just that. Spreaded love, and during the civil rights movement and all of that, the songs helped carry people through to the next day, to have something to look forward to. Well, that's what life is all about, movement, about growing, about loving each other. So when I got in this group and I started hearing the songs, and I'm like Jawan, when I'm on stage and I'm singing the songs and I'm feeling what I'm singing, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm a temptation. I'm a part of a movement that will outlive me, because the music will continue to move on. It will continue to bless people's lives. It will continue to bless our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, because they're going to hear the songs. So that for me, it's very, very emotional for me. And each night I'm grateful and thankful.
And now that even
Incidentally,
Beautifully said.
Tony is our in-house minister, as you can probably tell.
I think we all got there, yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
He carries us through different types of situations, when he ministers a prayer to us. And, we always say a prayer before we go on stage. And, even though his 2 years that he's been in the group, now he's the official, the Right Reverend Tony Grant, so.
we put all our prayer requests in through Tony.
Direct message to upstairs through
Yes,
Tony.
sir.
Yeah. Otis, one of the last questions before we let you guys get out of here.
Be the last. I'm enjoying this.
Well, hey, listen. All right. I saw an interview you did recently, relatively recently, with Gayle King, and you were discussing something that I thought was extremely powerful. And you were discussing one of the first times that the group played in the South, and you walked out on stage and there was a rope down the middle of the theater. Would you mind kind of rehashing that story? Because I think that's a beautiful message that you were talking
No,
about.
I don't mind. When I look back at Motown's history, and I say it just about every night when we're on stage, there's a sit-down section that we do before we're going to our latest record. I will always say there will never, ever be a recording company like Motown Records again. Motown came along during the turbulent 60s. God and his infinite wisdom brought that little two-story family flat together at that point in time. The music that came out there, I've been told, say it again, Otis, was like a soothing ointment to a troubled soul, which we were at that time. We were in the South. We went to do this show.
Columbia, South Carolina.
Yes. And when we got the classic tips, we came to the stage and we looked out in the audience, because we always surveyed who we got to perform to. There was a rope from way back there all the way down the center of that auditorium. David, Eddie, Paul, Melvin, and myself, we looked at each other and we said, you got to be kidding. All right, we went out and did the show. People still enjoyed it. But the killing part was when we came back that next year, there was no rope. But hold up, let me tell you what happened. And I would often wonder, who sent that? I was, because I talked to my man upstairs all the time. Last February of last year, Derek, our road manager, he said, Otis, there's a young man who would like to talk to you. So
This is 60 years later. I mean, this is almost 60
right.
years later.
So I got dressed and came out. I said, hey, I'm Otis Williams. How you doing? He said, Mr. Williams, I am the little boy that put that rope down the center of the auditorium.
And this is a white man that's talking.
White man. And I stood there and I was like, oh, really? I couldn't believe it. And he said, I just had to come and let you know. I didn't want to do that. They made me do it. But God answered my question. And why? So, yeah, there's a lot more I could tell, but we won't bring it to the sobering part. But that one stands out very, very often and long.
And I think it's also a message to the power of music.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not necessary, we like to, especially when we're talking the 50s and the 60s, we like to, and forgive the term, it was often referred to as race music, this, that, or the next
say
thing.
it like it is. That's what it was called, referred to.
But good music is good music, right? And it isn't black or white. It's good music. And
Yeah.
Has its own language.
there's healing power to it. There's healing power.
Yeah. I had a speaking thing to attend to about 4 months ago. And just like you all, I'm sitting there, I said, just test and see what kind of feedback. So I started telling them, I said, I'm not trying to denigrate anybody's music, taste of music. I said, but I am not happy with what I hear on the radio today. And when I start telling him, B, I'm coming over to do whatever, B, you better have my money. I've said it, and a friend of mine in D.C. who works with certain people, he said, Otis, we believe strongly that the FCC has relaxed their laws because you hear some stuff on the radio today we never heard, and it's a slippage of where we are as a people. It's bad. It's not good. That's why the music that we are known for, y'all still adhere to and love us for it today. Thank you.
I mean, the simple fact that you had a record, My Girl, and now, honoring it and reaching out, and now it's, like you said, be this and be that.
One of the top 5.
Yeah, it's a very different. Before we jump out there, I do have one more question. Hang on, sir. I do have one more question in here before we get to the very end here, because I thought this one was fascinating. And Ron, you can take this. Otis, you can take it if you'd like. Debbie from Virginia, I love you for asking this question, and it's a fair question, Debbie. It is a fair question. It's going to seem funny, but it's a fair question. Do any of you ever hear from or see the last original Temptation? If so, how is he doing?
Hold on, let me check. How you doing, baby boy?
Debbie,
Yeah.
in the flesh,
Yeah, right here.
every day in the mirror.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, every day I look at the last temptation. Yes.
Before we let the gentleman...
Who also just celebrated his 82nd birthday.
Yes.
80 seconds, yeah.
Yes. Let's not forget that.
Thank you.
And before we let the gentleman go, they've offered so graciously to step outside. Do me a favor, we're not going to push up to the stage at the end of this. They've offered to step outside and sign some autographs and say hello outside the theater. So if you want to meet them and say hello, you're going to go out that door over there and head to the back. I don't do this, so I'm going to allow you to do it, but you're the only one. Fire away quickly. Yep, I'll repeat it. Yep. Great question. You mentioned there's a lot of music we may not have ever heard. Is it potential that we could hear it in the future?
Well, that's up to the powers that to be over at Universal. They're forever rehashing Motown's music, so keep hope alive. It could happen still.
Great question. Here's what we're going to do. Because this man just celebrated a birthday, we're going to get an opportunity that we don't always get. The Temptations have sung to us for 60 years. I think we can return the favor to a living legend right here on stage. So on the count of 3, we're going to sing happy birthday to this very deserving man right here. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Otis. Wow. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Beautifully done, Malt Shop. Do me a favor. Help me thank these fantastic individuals. Make some noise for the Temptations.
Thank you.